Hello, my fine friends. Welcome back to Destination Discourse. I am your host, Stuart Butler, joined today with the real Slim Adam. How are you, Adam?
The real Slim Adam. That's a new
Yeah,
one. I'm good, Stuart.
you were
I want you to
notorious Adam
know.
last time, right?
No,
So now you're
yeah,
the
I
real
like
Slim.
Notorious a little better than Slim. I don't know why, but for some reason it doesn't feel like it works.
All right, well, Notorious obviously did. The real Slim. We'll try something else next week and we'll see. I think you might see a pattern forming. So
Okay.
we'll see
Yep.
what's
New
happening. But
new descriptors every time.
that's right. How are you, Adam?
I'm good. This is how much I love you, Stuart. I want to be very clear. My alma mater, BYU basketball, is playing in the
Hmm.
Big 12 tournament in about 15 minutes. And
And
I
you're on this
chose
show
to spend
instead.
that time here with you and Heath today, and I'm excited for it.
So to the audience that are listening, if he squeals in excitement or starts cussing, we know why. It's not you, it's not us, it's the basketball that he's watching. And you switched hat today. You're not brand loyal to
I,
Brand
I'm
Revolt.
I'm representing the alma mater today. It's a unique day where it's not my brand today that I'm promoting.
Okay, that's fair. We'll see if that hat's still on by the end of the game. All right, and we got a guest with us today. So we're joined today with a fellow South Carolinian, Heath Dillard from Visit Greenville. How are you, Heath?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm excited to join the conversation. And as I mentioned to you, I've caught up on several of your episodes. They've been fantastic. I'm happy to add to the conversation.
Great. And it's totally your fault that you're on this show, Heath. You know, you and I have
I'm
sort of knew of each other. We'd sort of been in the same room a few times, never really had a conversation before, but you asked a really, really good question recently at the governor's conference. And so we're gonna talk about that question today. So stay tuned. You're gonna hear more about that in a little while, audience. But before we get into that,
It's
Adam,
time.
you know it's time. It's time for the greatest segment in all of destination marketing, nay, all of entertainment. It is time for Stu's News.
It's Stu's News, Galaxy 2. Stu's News, it's
Adam,
a
did you change the volume again? It sounds loud again.
Oh no, is it high?
Like we have one episode where you lower the volume and then you go right back to high, man. It's like,
So it
but you
it
didn't play it twice this
defaults.
week.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did stop. I'm making baby steps here, but it defaults for some
All right.
reason to maximum volume, even if I have it turned down. So I have to remember to turn it down before I
So
press
last
play.
week, everyone got super excited. They're like, we're not bursting eardrums anymore. I can listen to the rest of the show without pain. And now you just went and, whip the rug out from under them.
I got to keep everybody on the edge of their seat. You never know what's going to
I
happen.
know, I know. Well, we'll fix that next week, audience. As you can tell, this is a show with no real preparation, no real sense of it at all. But we do our best. So, Adam, do you want to talk about Stu's News today? I think
Yeah.
it would be appropriate for you to bring this one up.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk a little bit about a campaign, a holiday campaign that was done by Carson City, Nevada. And you and I have talked a lot, Stuart, about branded entertainment, owned media, and really putting content at the center of your campaigns. And this was an interesting execution from Carson City, Nevada. They essentially created a miniature Hallmark movie and had all the components that you would expect in a Hallmark movie. I think the acting was what you would expect in a Hallmark movie, and I felt like they did it for a destination of the size of Carson City, Nevada. I thought it was an excellent execution. And the reason I say that is because I think if Myrtle Beach was going to go all in on trying to create a Hallmark movie for Visit Myrtle Beach, I think the resources that you would have to do so would be a lot more than what Carson City, Nevada likely has. And for the size of their destination, for the size of their budget, I really felt like this was a well executed campaign. I'll share my screen and open up the landing page here that they have on the Carson City website. It's a 14-minute film, and it tells kind of a brief story. About this woman who's from the big city, and in fact they even just refer to it as big city,
Yeah, it's cute.
and that's the place where she's from, and she kind of gets converted from a lover of the big city to a lover of Carson City, Nevada, and goes from wanting to kind of come purchase property and do a big development, and instead decides to back out of the development and make things.
So it's spoilers. Come on, man. People are gonna want to watch this. You're like giving away the ending.
Well, I just thought it
Yeah.
was really fun because they're weaving in a story. I will say fiction is one of the hardest things to do in marketing, and I thought they did a really, really nice job with it. I'm trying to get the tab to play, so maybe you guys can react to it while I'm pulling this up.
Yeah, and I think for one of the things that I really liked about it is they were in on the joke, right? There was a lot of breaking the fourth wall and sort of winks to the audience where they were really playing with the tropes of these Hallmark style movies, but they were also like shamelessly, like they had a character in it that would shamelessly look at the camera and sell the value proposition of the destination. And you know, that could have worked really poorly, but the way they did it, like being in on the joke, where the other characters would sort of look at the camera to see what she was looking at, was funny, right? So it brought entertainment to you while you're still getting sold. And so I think they did a really good job of blending entertainment and education at the same time. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I hope you're not about to show the whole 14-minute video on this.
Oh,
I
no,
know.
I'm just showing the landing
Okay.
page here.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the other thing I loved about it. It was an extension. So they had this series of posters that they had and digital ads that looked like a holiday movie poster. There was a lot of extensions to this campaign. It wasn't just a video, right? It was sort of, that was the cornerstone of a larger campaign that was basically saying, you know, we're a great place to visit for the holidays, and they had itineraries and all kinds of stuff. So it was tangible, and the hook to get into it was this video. So you're right. With the resources they have, this to me shows that anyone can get into dipping their toes into branded entertainment. They did a phenomenal job. It was, you know, they didn't spend millions of dollars on this campaign, and they
Yeah.
didn't need to, right? Because the heart of the story was and the creativity of the story was apparent, and so that's what people were going to take from it. I know, Heath, have you had a chance to look at this movie and the campaign?
I did. I had not seen it before you shared it, but I watched it and it reminded me this past winter, our team came up with a very, very similar idea. We're very proud of our own sort of Christmas, New Year decoration and how the community goes all out for the holidays. And we worked with a group of local influencers who are comedians, and their stick is really sarcasm. And so we made basically an influencer pitch to Hallmark about, you know, this is not the place for a Hallmark Christmas movie. And it was fantastic, you know, so to be able to use local people who really know the community inside and out, you're not bringing in an outside influencer. So these are people who live here, know this place, have built a really organic following, who know why the Christmas season was really special here. And to sort of give a wink to your point, Stuart, is kind of give a wink to Hallmark to say, this is not the place to do a Hallmark Christmas movie, but oh, by the way, you should really be doing a Hallmark Christmas movie in
That's
our
fun.
community. It was fun.
Yeah.
I
You
do
guys have
feel
embraced
like-
Christmas. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, I feel like I want to give a word of caution to the audience, because I think there's a fine line between cheesy and natural. And I do think there were moments in this film, because I don't want to just say, okay, everything was perfect. I think there were moments where it crossed the cheesy line to the point where it got a little uncomfortable. And I
Yeah.
do think that if you're going to do cheesy, you have to do it right. And I did feel like there was too much cheesy in the beginning, and I think you could have lost people in the very beginning. And so I would encourage people to make sure that the beginning of the video has enough intrigue, and sophistication isn't the word that I'm looking for, but it needs to be enough to hook them for the entire film. And I did have
Yeah.
some concerns about some of the beginning, like the ranger right at the beginning started talking about how much she loved Carson City and why it was amazing. And I do think you have to be a little bit careful and not too on the nose if you're going to try to do something like this.
I think that's
Yeah,
why
I
we
think
tried to
they-
go the parody route.
Yeah.
Yeah, that because that line was hard. You know, I'm probably not the right audience for the Hallmark movies. So you know, the parody made more sense to us, I think.
Yeah, it is hard. I think they stayed on the right side of it, and I think the fact they were in on the joke themselves helped soften that a little bit. I think if you're cheesy without without signaling that you know you're cheesy, then I think it's more of a problem. But that was totally intentional, and I thought
Yeah.
they navigated well. I would like to see the average view time on it. You know, do people get through the full 14 minutes, or did they stop after 2 or 3? You know, the data side would be interesting to me. I'd love for someone from Carson City to come and talk about it. But I was going to say too, Heath, you guys in Greenville have done a phenomenal job around the holidays. I actually got to take a trip there this year. Enjoyed the skating rink, and we walked downtown by the river. And I mean, just the downtown renovation that's happened in the last 10, 15 years in Greenville is phenomenal. And I see that you're doing a lot of campaigns around the holiday season. And Adam and I actually spoke about one of them on this show in one of the early episodes, and that was the Home Alone campaign that you did, where people could actually recreate some of the scenes from Home Alone and stay in a hotel and eat pizza in a limousine and stuff like that. So it was actually from Home Alone 2, I guess.
Right.
So is that a campaign that you're going to continue? Have you seen success with that campaign?
Yeah, we this was the second year in a row that we did it. You know, we don't have strong seasonal periods, you know, like some, but we do have shoulders. And so, you know, the winter is that shoulder for us. And, you know, we wanted to do something that was targeting families. You know, maybe this is an opportunity for them to find more affordable travel to the destination. And there's a lot of family related stuff going on over that 5-6 week period. We also sort of had this perfect hotel partner. They're celebrating their 100-year anniversary this year, actually. And so they're in the motif of the Plaza New York, you know, sort of style architecture. And so it looks a little bit like that. And we actually did not do the campaign in an effort to truly drive bookings. We were constrained by limos, right? And so the package included all the things that Kevin did in Home Alone 2. So the limo ride, the pizza, the big ice cream dinner that he had, the hotel stay, ice skating, and all of that. And so there was a capacity to the number of products that we could sell, largely because of the volume of limos that are in the community. So we largely did it as a more broad, you know, winter tourism excursion into our community. But man, it took off. I personally love Home Alone. I've got 3 children. We watch it, I don't know how many times every season. But even then I was blown away by how much interest it had. We had moms calling the Westin Poinsett and saying, look, I'll hold my kids out of school to come up here and be able to do it. You know, we had people who checked out of the hotel and were already signing up for next year. So the experience really lived up to the promise. It was a lot of fun to be part of.
That's great. Now, did you get any pushback? Because I can hear some of the critics in my head right now saying, like, you selected one specific partner in the hotel, right? And yeah, they're about to celebrate their centennial, but did you get pushback from any of the other partners that you were giving so much attention to this one partner?
Ironically, we really did not. And it's pretty rare that we, you know, do a campaign where we focus on a single business like that.
Right.
But it couldn't be an all for everybody kind of thing. It sort of had to be pretty niche.
Yeah.
We've done other things like this winter. We did a Yes Day, also sort of targeting families, and we opened that up. And so, you know, we're trying to show love to a lot more folks, but that was pretty rare for us to really hone in on one particular hotel.
Will you elaborate on what a Yes Day is for
Yeah,
folks that
so
aren't
for those
familiar?
who have children in the audience, a Yes Day is where you say yes to all of your children's questions and demands throughout the day. We did put guardrails on it, not to make it completely miserable for the parents. And so we found a lot of our family related amenities throughout the community and sort of put a kid's checklist on it. And so we promoted that on our website. You know, we found hotels that had really cool indoor pools because it is the winter time. And then, you know, ice cream parlors and children's museums and children's sort of entertainment. And the child can go through with a checklist. And we sold it as a package. And it too just absolutely went sort of nuts on the website to the point where, you know, the biggest hotel that has the largest indoor pool was sort of saying, I don't know how many more of these we can accommodate, right? So it's sometimes too much success, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
Stuart, I know so for you, this may be a foreign concept. Some of us say no to our children periodically. And so a yes day is a unique day. In
Yeah.
your family, I think a no day may be a little bit more appropriate for
No,
you
you're
guys to
completely wrong.
celebrate.
I always exclusively say no to my children on everything. I believe in building resilience in my children. Now, I will say that giving your wife a yes day is also a really good idea, gentlemen. Just
That is
giving that
phenomenal
out there,
advice.
like doing that for your wife, just saying, "Hey, this weekend, Saturday's a yes day. We'll do whatever you want, and I'm going along for the ride." It's very good. I recently actually did that with my wife, and we had a good fun time. She ended up picking stuff that I wanted to do too, which was kind of cool. But we had a great time, and we
That's awesome.
just stepped out of our comfort zone and did things we probably wouldn't normally do on a given Saturday. You know, so
Oh, that's cool. I would
yes
be at
days are
Home
cool.
Goods the whole day.
I thought that's where it would end up, but it didn't. It was great. We ended up like at a brewery. We had good dinner. Like it was good.
Yeah.
Anyway, people aren't here to hear about my marital relationship. So the one thing I will say before we move on to the topic, Heath, is one of the things I admire a lot about you and your team is you do a lot of this experiential stuff, which a lot of DMOs don't. A lot of DMOs are focused on the advertising side. You're doing a lot that's really tangible and gets a lot of local attention, especially local media attention. And so in a world when we're really trying to justify our existence, when we're trying to communicate the value proposition to our community, the stuff you're doing really matters, is impactful. And as a byproduct, you're also getting the regional and national attention that's actually driving the tourism economy too. So it's a really smart strategy. I think a lot of DMOs, including us, can learn from it. So kudos to you guys.
I want to add one more thing there too, because there's some unwritten rules in destination marketing that it's taken a long time for me to kind of figure out. And one of those is like, well, only New York could be the place where we do a Home Alone campaign because Home Alone was shot there. Greenville was not featured in Home Alone. There is no connection to Home Alone. You can just do stuff, right? If you have a creative idea, you can just do it, and you don't need to follow any unwritten rule that only destinations that were featured in that movie can tie themselves to that movie. And I think that's proof that you can do it and it can work really well.
Yeah, it's
Challenge
fun
the
playing in the
status quo.
product development space too. I mean, it gives the creative team, this sort of innovative and creative license that we don't just have to sell the physical, tangible product that exists. We can put together packages and experiment and try. And we're not always doing it for clicks and books and things like that. To your point, it's sometimes just about creating, the broader awareness that our advertising alone might not reach.
Yeah, that's great. And the experience has certainly improved the quality of life. Do you have a gauge of how many of your residents took part in either the Home Alone or the Yes Day stuff?
I don't know the exact numbers, but to your point, it is. I mean, whether it's our events page or whether it's campaigns like this, our residents are our primary audience. To use us as a conduit to finding cool things to do in our own community.
That's neat. That's really cool. All right, so let's segue a little bit and talk about the setup, like what led to this conversation. So Heath, I'm going to sort of throw it back to you I'm not going to hold you accountable to a word for word recreation of the question you asked me at the governor's conference. But was it the governor's conference or was it DI? I forget which one it was. It was governor's conference. Yeah. Do you want to paraphrase what the question you asked me?
Yeah, and I know you guys have talked a bit about attribution, but you were moderating a marketing panel of some of our other state marketing folks, and my question was really around this idea of attribution and what DMOs are going to do with these new tools. And what worries me is that we sort of, our worst impulses as the DMOs are around the insecurity of our funding, and that we're going to sort of play the game with these attribution technology to sort of stack the scoreboard in metrics that are meaningful to those who fund us, but may or may not be in the best interest of our destination long term, and could also potentially distill the organization's value and impact down to the community back to this idea that I know you guys have talked about as simply just being a marketing agency. And so what role does attribution play in how we define success? But more importantly, what's the long-term goals that we're trying to reach as a community, and what's the role that the DMO plays in helping the community achieve those?
Yeah. So how do you think about it in Greenville? Like, how are you trying to solve that problem or the potential of that problem?
Well, a couple of years ago, I think our organization turned 40 years old last year, and we've done the thing that most have gone, from CVB to DMO, et cetera. And I think for the vast majority of the organization's history, we've had our blinders on, and we've been a tourism organization, and we developed tourism for the sake of tourism. And a few years ago, the community, through a strategic planning process, began to ask more of us, and that we need to leverage tourism for the positive benefits that it has on our community, that we need to extract those positive benefits and not pretend that there aren't some negative unintended consequences, that they may not need our organization necessarily to create programs that solve affordable housing or homelessness or safety or traffic and congestion and mobility or whatever it is, but to not at least bury our head in the sand and pretend those don't exist. And so, like many DMOs have started to do, is we now do our work, but through the lens and our why is to create a greater quality of life for our local residents and to create community prosperity, and not just economic and financial prosperity, but broad defined prosperity. And we need to be really excellent at selling and marketing. That's sort of the foundation of what it is that we do. But I think what I've seen over the 2.5 years I've been here is to have that purpose, and the lens by which our team now does that work creates an even greater passion for our community. It creates a greater engagement and tether to our organization. It allows us to attract and retain very, very highly talented people. And I sort of get out of their way and let them do their job, and they do it very well, with some of the campaigns that we've talked about here. And so I think our stakeholders and our residents see the value of tourism. We could always do a better job of continuing to tell that story of how the average person benefits from it. But every audience that I get in front of, I'm trying to connect the work that we do to what they might see as a benefit. And even this morning, right? I mean, I met with a group of women in commercial real estate, and I started my talk by asking how many of them were in the tourism business, and no one raised their hand. And I said, well, I hope by the end of this 30 minutes that at least many of you will raise your hand. And the point that I tried to make is we do economic development differently than other traditional economic development organizations. We work from the demand side of the equation. We're not attracting, we attract hotels when the feasibility and the financials make sense. And so, whether it's 1/3 to 40% of the restaurant spending in a market like ours is created by visitors, to try to show them how much real estate brokers, construction, insurance, and all of those non-traditional industries benefit from, even if they don't know it, from the work that our organization does.
Yeah.
It's a really
that makes
long-winded
it-
answer.
makes it
Sorry.
sense. No, it's great. It's great insight. Have you seen the KPIs that you're measuring that determine your success? Have you seen those shift over the last few years? Have you've made this turn towards quality of life?
I do. I've adopted here in Greenville many of the principles that we had when I was in Charlotte. I spent 10 years, a little more than 10 years, working for the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority, and through two 5-year strategic plans there, we believed in a balanced scorecard. And so the foundation of that strategy was our people and culture. So we looked internally to make sure we were a great place to work and that we could hire and retain great people. We had many of the traditional sort of sales and marketing KPIs to really ensure that we were driving operational excellence. Our belief was that if we did that, then the financials of the community would prosper. So hotel spending would go up, jobs would go high, taxes would flow. And then at the very top of our strategy was our community, and those taxes could be reinvested to better our community. Now in Charlotte, those taxes have been utilized not only to fund the DMO, but to build nearly $2 billion, or maybe slightly more than $2 billion worth of community assets, everything from the NBA
Mhm.
arena to the convention center, NASCAR Hall of Fame, museum and arts and cultural complexes, et cetera. And those are all things that the residents get to enjoy that haven't had a single dollar of local property taxes invested in them. And so bringing that approach to Greenville is to say the same thing. We need to be an organization that hires and retains really highly talented people. And it's my job to make sure that we have a culture that can do that, and that we can hold ourselves accountable to very high marketing, sales, and visitor experience standards, and that work will drive financial performance to the industry and community, and indirectly back to our organization, and ultimately that community will thrive. Both our stakeholders and our residents will value tourism and the work that our organization does. And so we measure success across a balance of those metrics.
So when you, am I right in Charlotte? I don't know if you were there when this was, but there was a coalition? Is it One Charlotte or some kind of alignment between a bunch of different organizations? Is that right?
When I was there, the economic development and the chamber merged
Okay.
as the business alliance, but still
Yeah.
separately there was the Regional Visitors Authority. Now, what is different
Yeah.
about their DMO is that they're both Visit Charlotte, and they manage all of the city-owned assets. So
Yeah.
they are, rather than hiring an ASM or OVG or somebody like that to manage the venues, the CRVA manages those. And so I was a
Yeah.
centralized department that helped manage all of that. It's a lot like Las Vegas or San Jose and some of the other destinations that do that as well.
Yeah, so I think, we looked at Charlotte a little bit when we were sort of going through some realignment here, and we birthed a couple of organizations to try to get community alignment. And Charlotte was part of our blueprint. In I got to tell you, it makes such a difference when all of the stakeholders, all of the power brokers in a destination are singing from the same song sheet, when we're
That's right.
aligned behind strategic objectives. Like, we can get a lot more done than when we're bickering, and it sort of shifts the conversation. A lot of times, I think DMOs end up with a squabble with other power brokers, whether that's their municipality or economic development, looking to slice the pie more, right? There's a finite amount of revenue coming to invest in product development and tourism promotion, and there's always this tug between the two. And
Mhm.
so what we're trying to do, and I think what Charlotte did and others, is instead of squabbling over how we slice the current pie, let's grow the pie for everyone, so we can all have more to invest in our community. Is that the sort of approach you guys are doing in Greenville too? You have
Yeah.
alignment between the other stakeholders?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be tough because everybody's got individual boards and individual missions. But I think the beauty comes when everybody can sort of rise above that and say, hey, we all have specialization, things that make our organization unique, and things that we're good at that maybe you're not good at, or the ways in
Yeah.
which we're funded allow us to do certain tasks that maybe the other organizations can't necessarily do. But how do we lean on each other? And it's okay to have separate lanes, but let's find those 3 or 4 or 5 things that overlap to the benefit of all of us. And so when I came into this market, I met with the heads of all of those organizations, and I said, I don't yet know what those are, but the ones that that are obvious to me are things like air service development, things like talent attraction, and the things that help us all win, whether you're trying to recruit businesses or help businesses grow, or if you're the chamber and you're helping the current business community continue to thrive, or whether you're trying to, influence conventions and meetings and even leisure visitors to come to the destination. Those are sort of things that we can all get behind. And that's been really helpful, for everybody to see that there's ways in which we could leverage the specialization of the other organizations to be better in our own work.
Yeah, and I think you got to have these relationships, so all the assets you have in a community, because there's oftentimes that someone's trying to solve a problem over here, that someone over here has the knowledge that they need to solve that problem, and they're just not communicating. And so, Brad Dean, now with St. Louis, we had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he's famous for always saying, I don't know if he coined this phrase, but I've heard it attributed to him, but if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. But I think equally as important is what he says after that, which is, if you can't get at the table, go create your own table. Like, if you need a bigger table, go create it. And so I believe that one of our core strengths of as an organization is to be a convener in any destination. And so, when there's this whole debate a couple of years ago around, are we destination management? Are we destination marketing? I still think we're destination marketing, although I can see the argument for management and stewardship. I still think of us as marketing. But I think one of our imperatives is to be a convener so that we're involved in destination management. It's not our responsibility, but we have to have our finger on that, and we have to be at the table with all those conversations. Otherwise, that's where this misalignment comes, and that's when people start gunning for our funding sources and devaluing what we're actually really contributing to the destination.
Yeah, I've said before, at least it's my opinion, that we don't own, as a DMO, we don't own the brand, right? The
No.
brand is what people feel when they're here. It's the memories that they take home with them. And maybe our most difficult job is as a DMO is finding that way to succinctly and clearly describe the essence of what makes our community so special. 99.9% of all the people that we influence to come to Greenville, South Carolina will never interact with anyone on our team. They'll certainly interact with our website and things like that. But the thing that they take away, the memories and experience that take away, will be the tens of thousands of people that they interact with over those millions of interactions and trips. And so it's important for us to understand, to your point, is we're not the brand. We're not the keeper of the brand. We have to constantly, but we want to be at the table and have our finger on the pulse. We want to advise and counsel so that it moves in an intentional way. But it's not something that we own.
Yeah, we're the shepherd in some ways, right? We're trying to usher it into a specific direction. Adam, I've been hogging the questions as I often do. Do you want to drill into anything we've talked about so far?
Yeah, I want to kind of just share one place that my mind has been going since we started this discussion. Heath, I think you're spot on with one of the problems that we have, and that's that when we're chasing a lot of the marketing related KPIs as our core benefit that we're bringing to a community, if our role is to make the lives of the residents better, which is what we kind of parrot around the industry, but then every performance metric that we track is a marketing related metric, we actually don't have the ability to measure, are we actually achieving what we're trying to accomplish? And that's the question you're raising here. One thing that I've seen since I've been in destination marketing is nothing creates community pride like a crisis, whether that's a natural disaster or I was in Maui earlier this year and I saw all these Maui strong signs and billboards and handwritten stuff put on houses and all kinds of stuff. And, I love that crisis brings people together. I think that's wonderful. However, I think as a destination, if we can facilitate community pride absent a crisis, I think that's where we'll really understand that we're doing our job. And I saw that after COVID, a lot of destinations really invested in kind of community togetherness and community pride campaigns. And I kind of feel like now that the ARPA money has worked its way through the system and, COVID feels a little bit like a distant memory at this point, a lot of destinations have gone back to just the marketing related metrics and not working so hard on the community pride side of things. And I think a great way to measure resident sentiment is to understand community pride. And if so many of our visitors, and we've talked about on this show, I believe it was Raleigh, North Carolina. It was either Raleigh or Charlotte, and now I'm struggling to remember which destination it was that talked about this. But they said that it was like 45% of their visitation was visiting friends and relatives.
Yeah.
Well, that only happens if you're proud of where you live, right?
Yeah.
And so how can we as destinations, and this is a little bit more of a general question, but make sure that we're facilitating the community pride aspect that's going to have so many non-tangible or so much non-tangible impact on the visitation that we have and the success of our organizations and all that?
Yeah, I mean, you may have talked to my friend Laura White, who's the director of brand marketing in Charlotte. And, this is really before the resident sentiment sort of craze took off. This was way back in 12 or 13. And we noticed it's well over 50% actually. The reason that people are visiting Charlotte is to visit people who live there. And I remember seeing sentiment of our local residents. Our local residents did not believe that Charlotte at that time, they did not think very highly of the culinary scene. And so we're like, okay, we're a region, a 10-county region of nearly 2.5 million people. Their voices are a lot louder than the marketing budget that we have. We have a
Yeah.
real issue. And so this was way before a time where DMOs were willing to spend money locally. But we said, we've got to fix this, right? We can't have our own local residents not believing in the quality of our culinary scene or the broader destination. And so we started, we had an internal magazine for several years called Charlotte Happenings. And it was a 10-time-a-year magazine that talked about all the great things happening in Charlotte, the new restaurants that were opening, the events and Broadway shows and all these things that were coming to the market. We wrapped the light rail system and the public transportation to try to create that sense of pride. And what we saw is over time, that sentiment changed and it grew very positively. And I don't believe that it's a coincidence that the investment in the restaurants, the quality of their culinary soon followed. And so by the time I left in 2022, many James Beard nominated restaurants and chefs. And so, sometimes, you've got to change the perception in an effort to impact the product. And, we did some of that. And so we measure that here. We want to keep our finger on the pulse of not just do people know about Visit Greenville and think that we do a great job, but do they understand tourism? But to your point, are they really proud to be from South Carolina and Greenville more specifically? Will they be champions of the trail networks and the outdoor recreation that exists within a 10-minute drive of our downtown? Are they really proud of the sports and entertainment and the art and culture and the culinary scene that exists here? Because they can amplify our brand message much more than even our paid, owned, and earned can.
Yeah. Do you guys survey your residents on a frequent basis, annually or more frequently than that?
It's annually, but it's something that we're talking about already about,
Yeah.
Is it something that we want to bring in-house in a way that would allow us to do it more frequently?
Yeah, we're actually bringing ours in-house right now. We've used an agency partner for several years, and they've done a great job. But we want to be a little more agile and cost effective with that, so we can go more frequently. And one of the things we look at, we talked in last week's episode about this, where there's 3 surveys everyone should be doing. One is to the visitors, understand business sentiment. One is to the residents, and then one is to your internal team. Like, everyone should be doing those 3 surveys. And so one of the things we look at is where the differences are between the visitor perceptions in what they're interested in and what they like about the destination and don't like, and in the locals, right? When there's a discrepancy there, this is sometimes where the friction happens in terms of locals turning anti-tourism and stuff like that. So I think one measuring it, but then gaining the insight from it, and then 3, what you've talked about, which is having a deliberate strategy to try to impact it. I think with COVID, going back to the conversation about us focusing on locals and doing that stuff, and your conversation about crisis, Adam, I think we were forced into that, and it was more of a tactic than a strategy. It was sort of a survival tactic.
Mm-hmm.
No one really that I've seen is doing a great job of turning that into a comprehensive strategy with a deliberate purpose of changing sentiment. And we've gone about the culinary thing in a slightly different way, but the approach or the mindset was similar to yours in Charlotte. And one of the reasons we created the Chef Swap at the Beach show was not only to drive promotion and marketing, but we thought it would create and foster a sense of community pride. And I got to say, we underestimated that significantly. The amount of outpouring of support and the chatter on social locally around Myrtle Beach now has a culinary show really surprised us. I mean, we thought it would happen, but it was way more than we thought. And then now we've turned that into a product where you can actually download a trail and go and eat at these restaurants and maybe get a free appetizer and stuff. And so we're turning that into sort of a tangible thing, but it did catalyze more restaurants. Like, we're seeing people that saw that Myrtle Beach has this thing and there's an emphasis on culinary. And to your point, when you start talking about that, it attracts other like-minded people. So maybe more people that are graduating from our culinary institute are choosing to put down roots here instead of going to Charleston or Greenville and stuff. So, I think it's a really smart strategy that you're doing that.
Have
We did
either of
that.
you tried, because I've seen a lot of destinations monitor social sentiment. How are people talking about the destination in our feeder markets and things like that?
Yeah.
Do any of you do social sentiment monitoring locally and measure that quarter to quarter or year to year?
We measure it. I don't know that we focus on it like on an ongoing, like quarterly basis. We don't review it like that on a quarterly basis. We're really just sort of listening for problems versus trying to analyze shifts. But I
I
don't know,
think
Heath, what about you?
one of my problems is I feel like, yes, the surveys and stuff like that, I think they're really good. I also think people lie on surveys and tell you what they think you want to hear in a lot of cases. And quantitative data,
Yeah.
I think, is a little more reliable than some of the qualitative answers that you
Mhm.
get. But I
Yeah.
think that's one of my concerns. I don't think people lie on social. I think people tell the unfiltered truth on social, and measuring that as a community pride kind of measurement mechanism. I think that may be one of the KPIs that we're not tracking that might be interesting to
Mm.
track to see if we're making a difference locally.
We've tried a handful of different technology vendors to get around this idea of destination experience. It's been it's been sort of a you know, something that I've been trying to measure for more than 10 years, and it's not been easy to do. And we've had a tool where you can, slice the data by origin market. And so we can look at the local audience, but it is sort of scanning Facebook, TripAdvisor, a lot of the Google reviews and things like that. It's somehow incorporating some geolocation stuff in there as well, but it's not strictly social. But yeah, that's been something I've been trying to get by for more than a decade, and it's tough.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, there's a note to all the vendors out there. If you have a solution or you want to develop a solution, maybe there's a market for that. I don't think there's a DMO in the world that wouldn't want better visibility into that, understanding the destination experience from a local perspective and a visitor perspective. I think that's
Right.
very valuable. Yeah. Well, this is an amazing conversation. I didn't realize we were going to go in this direction with this conversation. I thought we were going to get more into data and attribution, and we've sort of been more philosophical and stuff. So you never know where this is going. What's next for you guys in Greenville? Where's your head at over the next few years? Obviously, there's a lot of shifts in consumer behavior and maybe economically and maybe politically. Like, what are your priorities moving forward?
Yeah, we certainly are keeping our eye on sort of the political and economic downside risk and what that might mean for the community. For the last couple of years, I mean, we surpassed pre-COVID levels in 22 and have now beat those again in 23 and 24. And so we're at that stage of the economic cycle. Unless something changes, we're really focused on yield. It's really difficult for us to grow more. And so we're trying to find there's really high value travelers that can stay an extra day or two, that can allow us to sort of push rate and spend more and do more activities while they're in the market. And then when we do have those slight shorter periods in December, January, and February, find cool products and cool campaigns that will appeal to families and maybe those travelers who want to come to the market but are looking for a more value type of trip. So
Yeah.
really placing the right kind of demand, and it's the same on the convention side. We've invested a lot in data, and I always say we don't want groups for the sake of groups, right? We want the right group in the right area of the community, on the right day of week at the right time of year. And so how do we help our community sort of yield itself in the most strategic way possible?
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really smart. Well, we certainly appreciate you being on the show, and you're welcome back anytime you want. Just next time, be careful what questions you ask at conferences, because you never know if it's
Yeah.
going to land you in a hot seat.
That is noted for sure.
Hey, Adam, I want to introduce a new segment to the show, Adam, if we have
Ooh.
time. This might backfire tremendously, so I might have to edit this out. Hopefully not. But do you have your Apple iPhone near you by any chance?
I do.
All right, this may not work, but can you pull up the podcast app real quick?
Yes.
You're
I will.
intrigued?
I wonder where we're headed.
And then go to search and type in Destination Discourse and filter it by shows. and just go to the show page for Destination Discourse.
Okay, I'm there.
All right, so you're on the Destination Discourse page on Apple Podcasts. All right, scroll down to the bottom to where the reviews are.
Okay.
If you scroll down past some of the episodes, you're going to get to reviews. Do you see what score we have there? How many
It looks like
stars?
5.0 out of 5. I'm no mathematician, but
that's-
I think that's pretty good.
To me, that's you can't go much better. And look underneath that. How many reviews do we have? It should say to the right underneath.
I see 3 ratings. I don't see any reviews. Am I missing
I
it?
know. No, there's
Okay,
no
that's
reviews.
the problem.
I know. Like we have 3 ratings and 0 reviews. Is it? I mean, to say I'm disappointed in our audience, Adam, it's an understatement. So the new segment I'm going to propose is if you want to leave a review on Apple, anywhere really, we'll go look. Apple will be great because then we don't have to look in one place. But if you go leave a review, Adam's going to read that out next episode. So
I will.
That's
I'll read it out. In fact, write a review that's critical of me, and I will be forced to read the critical review of me on the show live. So there's some incentive to comment and have some fun with it.
yeah, I can't wait to see what people write. So that'll be phenomenal. So that's our new segment. We're going to do
But-
like listener reviews.
Now you've got me curious. I'm looking on Spotify,
Yeah.
and we've got 1 rating, no reviews as well. This is a problem.
Yeah, man.
this is a
I
real
mean,
problem.
we talk all the time about engaged communities here, Adam, on the show. And we've done a poor job of engaging our community. So now we're going to engage them by reading their reviews. So, you know, we would love more ratings for sure. All 5-star, obviously. Like the 3 people that have already rated it. It's probably me, you, and your mom, to be honest,
Yep.
that have done the 5-star ratings. But yeah, leave a review and we'd read it out. That would be phenomenal. You
And
hurt my
we'll know
feelings
who it
today,
is.
audience. Yeah.
We'll know who it is if we go and it's like Heath Dillard is the best guest that's ever been on the show. We'll have a pretty good idea of who left
That's
that
exactly
review.
That's funny. Well, Heath, my friend, it was a pleasure to have you today. Any final words of encouragement or advice for our audience, other than that they should leave us a review on Apple Podcasts? Do you have any other
I gave you
advice?
a face-to-face review that I've listened to a half dozen or so shows since you invited me on. I think they've been really good. They spark a lot of ideas, you know, that I have. I just encourage our peers to continue to think of themselves as more than marketing agencies. You guys have said it in a lot of episodes that I've listened. Our organizations are making great impacts in communities all across the world. Keep doing great work.
Awesome. What a pep talk. I love it. Adam, how about from you?
This was illuminating for me, just the discussion around because we obviously as an agency are focused pretty tightly on the marketing KPIs, and we're not doing a ton of interaction and reporting with our clients on the community sentiment related KPIs. And so that's something that I want to do some thinking and digging into. I also, Stuart and I have reached out to our personal networks and have gotten pretty far into those personal networks for great guests for the show. I see the numbers. There's a ton of people listening to the show. If you listen and you have an opinion on anything in the industry, Stuart and I aren't scared of any topic. So whatever you want to bring, I've got a couple of people that I've talked to that are like, oh, I'm not ready to put myself out there yet and talk about this thing that might get me in trouble. I think you'd be surprised at the value that comes from having conversations that aren't had anywhere else. And I would love to see more people reach out and come on the show with a hot take or a strong opinion and let us kind of debate it so that the industry can make a decision. Everybody agreeing accomplishes nothing. We all need to kind of hear the different perspectives and opinions and then make a decision for ourselves on what's going to make us most successful in our career and make our destination the most successful.
Yeah, well said, Adam. We're certainly stronger together when we, have conversations about the things we're struggling with. And that's what this show is intended to be, a platform for the community of destination marketers to figure out some of our problems. We said from the beginning, it's part therapy session for us, but it's also part masterclass, like you heard today from Heath. But and it's also partly a love letter to the industry to say, hey, we can do a little bit better than we've done in the past. And so that's the spirit. We're going to be generous with how we treat things, even if we disagree with them. You know, we're going to be generous. We're not out to get anybody. But so if you disagree with stuff we say, we'd love to have you on the show and have a
Please.
conversation about it. It would be, it's okay to disagree agreeably. You know, that's part of what makes us think. I've had several folks on this show the guests that have challenged the way I think about things, and I'm a better CMO for being a part of this show and sometimes listening back even I'm like I don't even remember us saying that, but that's really smart and we should do more of that in Myrtle Beach. You know, it's kind of weird when you're in the real-time conversation, you don't always pick up on every little nuance. So it's great. But yeah, if you want to reach out to Heath, Heath, how can I get in contact with you?
Yeah, they can find me on our website at visitgreenvillesc.com.
Great. And then Adam, the real Slim Adam.
The real not slim Adam. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can email me, adam@thebrandrevolt.com, or find me on Tourism IQ.
Great. And you can find me, stuart.butler@visitmyrtlebeach.com, or you can look me up on LinkedIn. Would love to have you just say, hey, I left a review. Adam's going to have to read it out next week, or that you want to come on the show, or just you have a question you want us to tackle. I think that could be another segment we could add, listener questions, Adam.
Yeah.
So we just got to get listeners and then them give us questions for that to
Yeah.
come to fruition.
If you're going to give me uncomfortable reviews to read, give Stuart uncomfortable questions to read. Like the mailbag could get really off topic real fast, and I'd love to see Stuart have to do that.
Oh yeah, there's no limits to the questions you can ask. Any topic. AMA, right? It's going to be.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Until next time, this has been Destination Discourse.